Hello, my name is Joseph Leo. I've been coming to Grace Rev now with my family for September will be 2 years, and it's been the greatest experience of my life to date. I grew up in Wichita, between Wichita, Kansas, and northern Texas. Spent a lot of my youth living two lives. I was a gang member from the time I was 11 to the time I was probably 23 or 24. Lived a very volatile, very hateful, hurtful life. And so I spent most of my life, my young life, confused. Come from a abusive family. My father was an alcoholic my entire life until the day he died. So I didn't really have a lot of guidance growing up from family or positive influences outside of the church. Spent a lot of time in and out of juvenile detention with different charges. Ran away from home, stole a couple cars. Never really had any addiction to drugs and alcohol. Had an addiction to anger, hatred, rage. So I spent a lot of my youth lost. Eventually, throughout my youth and into my early teens and possibly into my adulthood, I ran across a gentleman. His name was Max Hosley. He was a farmer out of Minneapolis, Kansas, and I don't know what caused this gentleman to approach me, but first thing he asked me when he walked up to me was, "Do you know Jesus?" And at that point in my life, I thought I did. I'd been baptized and had thought I was doing everything right in the church, but obviously it wasn't. So I had to tell him no, I didn't. We sat and talked for, it had probably been a couple hours, and that day I rededicated my life without question, without doubt, without fear, without judgment. The only thing that didn't happen that day is I couldn't find a church that I felt, I couldn't find a home, I couldn't find a place where I belonged. It seemed like every time I went into a church I was being judged, or I just didn't feel comfortable. And then 2 years ago I got remarried to my high school sweetheart, Melissa. And she said one of the stipulations of being married was that I had to come back to church. So I told her to go ahead and start looking for a church that possibly we could go to, that we could be a part of. And she told me about this church, Grace Point, that she had attended regularly, and she really felt comfortable there. But she had wanted to do something new with her life and with our lives combined. So she then began to tell me about a small church called Grace Revolution. So we committed to coming one Sunday. And I didn't know what to think, because I'd never been to a church where you could dress normal, look normal, act normal, where you could be you. We arrived, and I was kind of shocked at first because it didn't look like any church that I'd ever been to. I didn't know really what to expect, but right from the get-go, we were welcomed beyond question. It was amazing. I walked into greets and handshakes and hugs and welcome to Grace Rev, and it was it was a beautiful day. I knew I found a place to call home. I knew I found a place that my family could come. We hadn't even gone through a sermon yet. I was just coming through the front door. We got taken to the VIP table, signed a few pamphlets, a few cards, and got some coffee and donuts, and went and sat down. And man, the music was overwhelming in a good way. It just lit my spirit. It lit my heart. It just developed everything that I always knew I was as a child when it came to being a Christian. And then Tim took the stage, and Tim started to preach that Sunday, and man, I got goosebumps like I'd never before. I got a feeling of overwhelming excitement and happiness and release, and I knew that there was no way that I could ever call another church home ever again. And it seems like ever since, whether it's watching the sermon on the television in the room, or whether it's sitting and watching the congregation or watching Tim, I still get the same feeling every Sunday. It hasn't changed since the very first time. There's a greatness in this church. The Lord is doing miracles every day in this church. The Lord is just, it's a place for the broken. And every Sunday, I find a new piece of me to put back into the puzzle, so that I'm not as broken this week as I was last week. And then a couple months ago, Tim had reached out and asked about volunteers, and we're seeking volunteers. And but this particular Sunday, he was asking for volunteers to help out with the children, and or to help out in anywhere other than the norm. And since I was a teen, I've always wanted to be a youth minister. I've always wanted to minister to the youth. And he spoke up, and immediately I just felt the surge of energy, and I just can't describe the real essence of what overcame me. I just know that as soon as he asked, I knew where I was going to go. I knew where I was going to ask to go. And so I talked to Tim and Carla, and I've been ministering to the youth now for 3 months. These kids teach me more and more every Sunday, and I'm almost willing to bet that they probably teach me more on a Sunday and on a Wednesday night at youth than I'm able to teach them. But the combination of the two has helped my faith grow. My walk has gotten stronger. My dedication has gotten stronger. I no longer live in fear. I no longer live in doubt. I know where my heart belongs, and I know where my heart's going to lead me. And this is home. This is Grace Revolution.